Good morning friend. Today I am going to discuss about the Spring Batch application and H2 database. H2 database is the in-memory database. So what I am going to do, I am going to read file using Spring Batch operation from CSV and write into the in-memory database. So here you see I have used Spring Boot and Spring Batch integration. First, what you need to do to execute the job, you need a job launcher, and to execute the job, you need step. And in the step builder factory, you have that item reader, item processor, item writer, and finally store the data into the H2 database through job repository. Let me start from the entry point. What is entry point for the Spring Boot? It is uh, at the rate Spring Boot application, and to make the batch enable, you need to write at the rate enable batch processing. So when we annotate our main application with at the rate enable batch processing, Spring Boot makes it sure that all required beans are available for you. Let me check the configuration details. In the POM, you need to have basic things like Spring Boot starter web, Spring Boot starter batch for supporting batch, for H2 database connection. You need to add the dependency Spring Boot starter data JPA and com.h2 database h2 runtime, and this properties file you need to include. I have used mem colon testdb, and you here I have provided the path of the CSV, and in this example I have used Lombok, so I have to add the Lombok dependency. And DevTool, Spring Boot DevTools, this is like a runtime if you change anything so that it can reflect. Let me start from the controller part. For controller, at the rate rest controller, and to invoke it I have to use slash run batch job, and here you need first job launcher. Here you see that job launcher is required. So this job launcher is going to run the job. To run the job, you need to this is the job definition. How it will get that, using at the rate component, it will check that where it is. I have mentioned that the rate qualifier account job, so job definition has been there. So job creation, first you have to create the job bin and also create the job parameter. Here you can, it's a builder factory, you can write the job builder, and uh, inside the job you will find the step and step builder factory to step, and inside the step there is reader, processor, writer. Okay, let me check what is present inside the job. Okay, so here in this component, here is the definition of the job, that Spring Batch job, and how it got it. It got it by account job. Is that's by qualifier. First you need to have a inside the job, here you see that step. So from the step builder factory you have mentioned that domain object users. So whatever we are doing, this domain object will be used for mapping, and this is also acts as the entity object. So reader, I have mentioned the uh, properties CSV file. Okay, so this is the resource inside the reader. So here I have passed the CSV file location in the reader, and processors, so I use the AutoAdd processors, and then writer. So everywhere you will see that domain object or entity object has been mentioned, and through which uh, and also you have the input for the resource. Okay, so CSV file location you have and the domain object you have, so you need mapping and all that necessary operation. Now let me check what is there in the reader. So in the reader I get the CSV file location. Okay, and from CSV file, so resource, so from resource, using here I have used flat file item return, and I have mentioned the domain object. And to read the data file we have to define the tokenizer. After that we have to map to read that token to our entity or domain object using bin wrapper field mapper. Okay, so finally what we have done, we have mapped it, domain object and the CSV object. In the reader we have mapped it, and uh, processor, what we have done, here also we have the domain object, and it also check the data present in the H2 database and check if that data presents, then only it will override with that entity objects. Okay, and finally it will return the domain entity object which is been used in the writer. So reader populates domain objects, item processors have that users.java, and finally process. And item writer, if you see that item processor, you will find that domain object here. So using that we have to do our operation. And write functions, so list of the multiple domain objects with all that data. Every record is at every domain fields. Okay, domain user, so it's that's users with the first record, second record, so multiple users object. So it's the list of the object, and finally we are going to save it. So here we save it, and using the jpa repository dot save all, and it will save it. And here I have used lombok, so I have used @data. Okay, and here is the definition of item reader, item processor, item writer, uh, so you can read it later. And step, what is this, and the same thing I have repeated, how job launcher execute the job. Inside the job there is a step, and reader, writer, and processor. And finally what you have to do, you have to invoke first, you need to invoke first before getting that users, what is that domain object details, you have to invoke it. So when we invoke this 8080 run batch job in the controller, when it is invoking that, it's batch getting started, and batch job has been invoked, and it's when batch job has been invoked, it's step, all that has been completed. Once it is completed, then we will get that batch job completed successfully. And during batch job run, using job launcher I have run it, so it will run job, it will have the steps, item reader, processor, finally write to the H2 database. So it's stored in the H2 database. So if you check the H2 console, you will see whatever I have written. Say I have written my name, my son's names, and all is visible in the H2 database also. Okay, so that's the beauty of the Spring Boot batch job integration. Thank you.